you anticipate that? How do you protect the psychological safety of your team when they may possess a fear of getting fired? How do you, essentially when I say psychological safety, all I mean is, how do you ensure that people don't feel afraid to experiment? How do they ensure that they don't feel afraid to try something different at work and not walk on eggshells because they fear that if they try something new and it doesn't work out, that they could be getting the axe?
Well, I think the key piece of that is connection, right? Because for everyone, that may show up very differently. For some people, they may be like, cool, I'll go work in the gig economy, I'm good. For other people, they may need flexibility. For other people, they just might need to know it's okay to be nervous. So I just really think connection's so important. I know during the pandemic, when we were like all sent home, and to your point on like mental toll for so many, I would just try to reach out to people, and you had to reach out in different ways because you weren't going to the water cooler, you weren't seeing people. So I used to do like a lot of walking one-on-ones. I used to call people randomly when we didn't have a business meeting, like, hey, what's up? How are you? How are you feeling? What's going on at home? What can I do to help? And I think you've got to make time to really connect. And those things are so, so important when you feel that uncertainty. And you might, as you go through a busy day or going through a busy meeting or whatever it might be, you might not have that conversation and you miss something that's super important.
I would say, do everything you can to take elements of surprise off the table. I think that's what creates psychological insecurity. Is an environment that has surprises, layoffs, without any conversation or awareness so that might be coming, and so there's a fear of it. And so part of creating that sense of security and lack of surprise is making a ton of investment in continuous conversations so people just know where they stand as far as how they're performing in their role. And you take that off the table. So at least they know, hey, if there's a macro condition going on here, I'm considered a high performer, or I know exactly where I stand throughout the year and not one time a year in an annual conversation. And then also surprise as much as you can afford to have policies. Like, we really don't ever walk anybody out the door at Freebirds. We have a practice of tenure-based severance if there is problems, and it takes a while to get to that even usually. So take surprise off the table would be my focus.
Well, in my opinion, if you're a leader worth their salt, you're already doing those things to consistently connect, right? So I mentioned reminding them how important they are to the organization, right? So whether it's going to have to be situational, because each and every employee in your group is going to be different. Some, words, love language or whatever. Some people like certain kind of things, right? So, for example, in my group, some of the things I did was, some were conversations, others were actual actions of saying, hey, look at the amount of work you've done, look at the amount of work that's coming, look at the demand, look at the pipeline. Some people needed it mathematically. So I would go and open up the planning and say, this is what we have and you're okay. But I also think you have to be a model of good behavior. So I mentioned mental health. So what you need to do is, as you're telling people to take that time off, you need to take that time off as well. Because if you're not taking it off as an employee, I'm going to be kind of paranoid. Like, okay, he's telling me to go off, but he's still here. So what's going on, right? So I think you have to model that by example. And I think that's, if you combine a bunch of what they've said with what I'm saying, it's a good enough formula for success in